Hello everyone, Colonizer here, and today we're going to be talking about the most likable racist to have ever been produced by fiction, Suguru Geto. Now, people generally don't tend to get Geto's strength due to it being somewhat obscure, however, it is actually incredibly impressive. If I was to give an analogy, it's like watching a honey badger. You think it's pretty weak initially, or not all that strong, and then all of a sudden it's squaring up to 3 lions and asserting its dominance. Yeah, Geto is pretty strong. However, when talking about Suguru Geto, you have to make a key distinction. Are you talking about a live Geto or Stitch's Geto? Now, since Geto has the same cast energy in both states, you can say if he took his body back from a 300-year-old gremlin piling it like a Pacific Rim mech suit, that he would arguably be the same strength. However, that then goes into cast energy control affecting power and a whole new can of worms that I'm not prepared to delve into in this video. So for the purposes of simplicity, and so that I don't have to eat even more Adderall than I already have, I'm going to be purposefully conflating the two as one individual, since Stitch's Geto shares all of his memories, is more or less is Geto, even referring to himself as such. However, names don't seem to mean much to brain gremlins, so interpret it however you will. Something that I think everyone can get behind is the galaxy brain energy that Geto exudes. With knowledge on Gojo and roughly a year of prep time, Geto was able to lock Satoru Gojo inside a box and run away with it too.
相変わらず規格外だな。
In the same arc, he was planning and partially succeeded in absorbing 2 of the disaster curses that up to this point had been running circles around most of the cast. That being the disaster curses Jogo and Ma. Is she legal? Let's see here. The usual schooling in Japan is 6 years of primary school from the age of 7. Moving on, we have to talk about Geto's immense skill in hand-to-hand combat. Even back in hidden inventory, after Toji had shaken off the rust and inserted his thick sword into Gojo's exposed meat, he squared up to Geto, and Geto believed that not only could he kill Toji, but he could defeat him in physical ability too. Now, most would default to the scene of Toji acting like a gorilla when it sees a newborn in its pen. The scene of Toji literally kicking Geto's skull across the floor is what most would default to when they think of Geto versus Toji. However, something that explains this scene is that Geto was completely taken off guard by the fact that he could not control the curse around Toji's neck. Now, why is this important? Well, it seems to Geto to be something that has never happened before. The complete shock in his eyes that his curse technique failed is akin to finding out your father's best pickup line was "You watch Live Leak." It's pretty shocking. So when Geto gets his chest cut open, I don't think he was actually ready for that attack. And with the anime telling us that you can move faster than cursed energy flow, and that a consistent theme in JJK is if you are caught off guard, you basically get one shot. Well, Geto's looking pretty good now, isn't he? Much later, Gojo informs us that it's hard to imagine Geto starting a war he cannot win, naturally meaning he won't start a fight he doesn't think he can win, which would tie into Geto's whole calculating persona. I wonder if he can calculate me some bitch. Another aspect of Geto that is not often talked about is the fact that he was actually stronger than awakened Rika and Yuta, and he would have actually killed them had he not split his curses between Kyoto and Tokyo. See my Yuta video where I explain the narrative depth of Yuta's love for a 12-year-old and why it makes him stronger than Gojo. Volume 0 Geto is said by Gojo to be, quote, too strong, and is someone that had roughly a 19% chance of soloing the entire Jujutsu world, which is basically the entire verse. And with Rika, whose sole purpose was to copy technique, this went up to a 99%, meaning the only thing stopping Geto from being the strongest sorcerer alive is technique. Now, why do I say technique? Wasn't Rika endless cast energy? Isn't that what Geto is after? Well, yes and no. It comes down to how Uzumaki functions, which is his maximum curse technique. When a grade 1 curse or higher is absorbed, Geto is allowed to extract its technique and then throw the curse at someone as condensed cursed energy. Essentially, Geto is extracting the juice out of an apple and then throwing what's left at whoever he needs to. This usually being small children. So it seems like Geto wanted to initially take control of Rika as a spiritual summon, like the smallpox deity, or like summoning some bitch, or like when Hashirama summons his big statue. So with this in mind, it now becomes apparent that with the ability to copy curse technique, no one had the stats to actually compete with Geto, which would be supported by the fact that Gojo again called him, quote, too strong, and that the Jujutsu sorcerers felt the need to essentially summon the entire verse to fight one man and his collection of mentally challenged children. So this all begs the question, why did Geto admit inferiority to Gojo then? Why did he need a year of prep time to seal Gojo? Well, that's pretty simple. His curse technique. Within the Jujutsu world, it's made pretty evident that technique is also used as a measurement of power, Geto himself being the best example. Even after a year's time and becoming special grade sorcerers, it is only after Gojo improved his curse technique, Infinity, did Geto actually admit that Gojo was above him, which is pretty indicative of what I'm saying, right? Well, you can also refer to how Toji is selling his son Megami based on the quality of his curse technique, or how Geto and Mahito discuss the soul, and Mahito talks about curse techniques separating their worlds completely, whilst no mention of stats is ever really given, almost like it's not important. Now, I could be speaking from silence when I talk about this, but I think it's more so Akutami and all their genderless wisdom trying to tell us that techniques are pretty important, guys. There are so many narrative implications that curse technique is what is used to measure IQ in the series that it isn't even funny, although I will try to joke about it anyway. So what else does Geto have then? Is he stronger than Gojo as a teenager? Yes, who cares? Is he stronger than Gojo and Yuta from around 2 years ago? Yes, who cares, right? What's he like right now? Tell us what he's like right now. Well, Geto right now is so powerful he shifted the entire manga's genre from shonen to survival horror. Now, I'm exaggerating when I say that. He didn't really change the entire manga's genre, but through his cunning alone, he completely uprooted all of Japan and sealed one of the most powerful sorcerers alive. And in terms of combat, he even blessed everyone's heart and acted like someone who isn't a degenerate. Instead of letting the enemy power up, or in this case, literally breathe, he piles on multiple of his curse techniques on an opponent, instead of pulling a stereotypical villain trope and using them one at a time while letting the villain or the enemy power up. He is super smart, right? Well, yeah. He also has what is likely dozens of curse techniques, and has likely extracted all of them with Uzumaki, such as smallpox deities and Mahito's. In Mahito's case, Geto can now mess with the soul of his enemies and himself, and regenerate his own soul however he pleases, essentially making him just as durable as Mahito was, and Mahito alone was durable enough to get blasted by a cut character from Evangelion. So Geto is super durable, right? Well, yeah. He's also incredibly skilled too, being shown to use martial arts and having his hobby be martial arts. The only other person really to use structured martial arts is Yuji, and we already know how much of a monster he is and how skilled he is. Geto has also said that none of his blood could surpass his own potential, and this means all 9 of the death paintings and Yuji in Geto's eyes cannot exceed his own capabilities. There are other interpretations to the scene, so it's not a hill that I'm gonna die on or anything, but it is something that is worth mentioning. And another thing to mention is the comments from the author Akutami telling us that Geto is actually capable of absorbing any of the disaster curses in a one-on-one scenario, meaning Mahito, Jogo, Dagon, or Hanami, anything they did can be applied to Geto since he is stronger than any of them, although Akutami does say that Jogo and Mahito would be a bit difficult for him. But this could be due to their curse techniques. So Geto is stronger than any disaster curse and is nigh unkillable due to Mahito's curse technique. Is there anything else? Well, yeah. He also canonically gets more women than Gojo, and I already know how the internet feels about Gojo's appearance. Jokes aside, however, yes, there is also the idea to consider that Gojo never considered Geto to be stronger than him while he was alive. There's also the fact that not once does Gojo call himself the strongest until Geto is dead, which goes to show the respect he had for his best friend, and is a testament to his belief in Geto, since they were both known as the strongest when they were younger. I wonder how many people are gonna misinterpret this video as the British man claiming Geto would beat Gojo. Oh no. The final piece I want to talk about is Mei Mei having her bet on Geto winning out against Gojo. This likely isn't in terms of who would win the battle, but more so who would win the war. Mei Mei has known both of them since Hidden Inventory about 13 years ago, so she knows them both quite well. So the fact that she has surmised that Geto would win out further demonstrates this lore surrounding Geto, that he doesn't start wars he cannot win. So whenever we get Geto acting and doing things, we can safely assume it is an almost guarantee it will succeed, in his eyes anyway. A lot of Geto's appearances in early Jujutsu Kaisen are brief, and they are mostly build up to the Shibuya arc, where he really becomes who he is. Hidden Inventory demonstrates his change from the moral system Gojo would go on to use and determine any action as good or bad, and into who Geto is now, a gremlin in a meat suit. Geto, in my eyes, is definitely one of the most underrated characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. However, I understand why. But in the interest of dispelling that idea, and to satiate my endless need to talk about a likable racist and a known terrorist, I made this video. I hope you all enjoyed me rambling for what feels like 30 minutes when I'm editing this, but to you it would only be like 10 minutes or so, right? Well, what matters is I finally got around to making a video on my favorite character from one of my favorite anime. Depending on when this video is released, you will have either seen my solo leveling video, or it won't exist yet, in which case be prepared for that. I have a lot to say about visual cocaine, so it should be fun rambling about Korean boys for 20 minutes. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later.